the stage.
Hi, good evening. I have Sebastian over there. It's almost his bedtime, so I'm going to keep it quick. But I just want to say it's an honor to be here and standing before all of you as the next generation of Latina lawyers. And I'm humbled by the support of the Latina Lawyers Bar Association, other attorneys of color in this room, and other allies that are very, very, very strong advocates of diversity in the legal profession. The scholarship is so crucial to the type of work that many of us are doing. It's very difficult to afford a legal education in this new millennium, but it's also very difficult to afford to be a lawyer for the public interest and to ensure that our communities, marginalized communities of color, actually have advocates, not just for direct legal services, but for structural reforms for social equity. So I myself decided to go to law school because I wanted to implement civil rights, but also implement equitable public policies. And growing up in urban Los Angeles, my mom and dad, both first-generation college students, shuttled my brother and sister and I all around the city, whether it was South LA, East LA, even the Valley. We were going to marches, to protests, to gallery openings, and really hanging out with friends. And through them, I now understand why I'm here right now. And I think it's 3 reasons. I mean, it's generations and generations, and Yvette was able to touch on this. The first is that, my great-grandparents and my grandparents, many of whom were U.S. citizens, were toiling in the fields of the San Joaquin Valley or construction sites in East Los Angeles. Through their hard work, my parents were able to go to college as the first in their families. Not because they were insanely bright, but because we had structural reform and remedies. We had affirmative action. And my parents were able to go to the Cal State University system. And finally, I was blessed to grow up in a household where I thought everybody went to college. It's like just a very radical idea to think that once you're done with high school, everybody's going to go to UCLA, go Baby Bears. But, that's not the case. So despite the privilege that I was able to grow up in, I feel like my whole education has been one of being a token. Whether it was being a smart Mexican in LA County's public schools for over 12 years, or being one of a handful of students of color in 3 different University of California campuses, it's scary. And now being a law student, there is a glimmer of hope. I'm studying constitutional law with Justice Sotomayor. We have a Latina dean at a premier public law school here in our state. And this is a big change from being in LA County public schools and only having one Latina teaching a normal subject for 12 years to actually having role models, not even just on the highest court of our country, but in this room. But all is not lost. We're not there yet. In the halls of a very elite public law school, my law school, we still suffer from the undermatriculation of Black, Chicano, and American Indian students. We also don't have a Latina law school professor anymore. And furthermore, many of us are suffering and dealing with how do we maintain our interests and our commitment to our communities while dealing with family issues, while dealing with pain with school, and just this notion of debt. So, despite the existence of an intellectual Latino powerhouse on the Supreme Court, we still have a long way to go. And that's why the scholarship is so important. I think many of us go to school and we maybe have a few of us in our own law school cohorts, but we don't get to see what I'm seeing here tonight. And I think that's what the Latina Lawyers Bar Association is able to do. If anything, it's this visual presence that we exist. And I'm really excited to see dedicated and compassionate mujeres that are here working tirelessly so that we can continue our own education and do the same. And something that comes to mind is when Sotomayor was confirmed, Lalo Alcatraz, the LA-based cartoonist, had his little cartoon, and it had a young Latina, maybe 7 years old, in a desk that was far too big for her, with a picture of the justice behind her pinned to the wall. And it had her last name, and it had judge, and it's this idea that we can aspire to something now because someone has done it. And I think that's what this room is that there's a lot of women here, and not only do we see your faces, but maybe we'll get your business cards, maybe we'll be able to work together. And it's this idea of a pipeline, a community pipeline that's based in our community as one would see racial or ethnically, but also in a shared struggle of being a token. So instead of a Justice Sotomayor picture above our walls, we actually have all of you. And I think that's even more powerful. So I just want to close with saying, the generous support of everybody in this room, of Verizon, has made it so that we have a generational pipeline that's just going to continue to give. And in a climate when our families are facing foreclosures, cannot pay for health insurance, are facing rapid increases in unemployment, you opening up your pocketbooks is even more impressive and humbling because we need it. So as we fight for more students of color in higher education, we can only hope that you continue to give, and we hope to do the same, loan repayment and forgiving. At this crucial moment in our legal education kind of makes us think otherwise. I think after your first semester, you're in it to win it. You can't drop out. You are already tens of thousands of dollars in debt. It's really important, I think, for myself, and I'm sure many of the other women and men here, to see people like you supporting us and saying that we can do it just by being here in the sense that you've done it. So thank you for believing in our future, and thank you for believing in the future of the state of California. Good night.